My son murmured into the phone. "Dad, he hurt me again." He said, "You're a soldier 1,000 miles away and can't do a thing." I heard the man snatch the phone. "You heard the boy. My brothers run this town." I went straight to my co and told him everything. He looked at T and said, "Go take the whole damn team with you. You're going on emergency leave." We put them in a living hell. Listen, there are moments in life that change you forever. For me, it was that phone call, that whisper from my son, Tommy, telling me he was scared, that he'd been hurt, and then hearing the monster who did it, taunting me, laughing, saying I was 1,000 miles away and couldn't do a damn thing. My blood ran cold, and in that instant, everything I thought I knew about the world, about my place in it, shattered into a million pieces. What would you do when the line goes dead, and you know your child is in danger, and you're literally a world away? See, Kandahar taught me things most people couldn't imagine. Not from books, but from the raw, ugly truth of combat. It taught me how to read people, to see past the words, straight into their souls. For 12 years with the Rangers, I became fluent in a language most men never learned, the vocabulary of violence, the grammar of survival. I grew up in rural Montana, the son of a third-generation rancher. My dad, William Kane, he taught me a man's word is his bond, and his fist is the last resort. When I was 17, he broke his back, and I spent that entire summer running our ranch alone, 16-hour days under a merciless sun. That's when I learned I could endure anything. When my dad recovered enough to sell the ranch, I enlisted. I had something to prove, though I could never really articulate exactly what. The Army, it refined me, like steel in a forge. I went from being a cocky kid to a team leader, earning my Ranger tab through blood, sweat, and a singular focus that bordered on obsession. My commanders called me Ice, because nothing seemed to rattle me. Firefights, IEDs, night raids in hostile territory. I moved through them with the calm of a man who'd already accepted the worst and decided it just wouldn't stop him. Then I met Tammy Vasquez at a USO event back in 2019. She was beautiful, you know? Those dark eyes, they felt like they saw right through all the armor I'd built up over years of combat. For the first time, I felt something beyond just the mission. For months later, we were married. 10 months after that, Tommy was born. He was everything. I tried to balance it all, the deployments, the family, the absolutely impossible demands of both those worlds. But Tammy eventually got tired. Tired of being a military wife, tired of that empty side of the bed, tired of raising Tommy alone while I was a world away. The divorce papers? They found me in Syria. It was civil clean. Joint custody. But let's be real, with my deployment schedule, my custody was mostly just theoretical. Tommy's 7 now. 7. And I hadn't seen him in person for 8 months. Just video calls, carefully wrapped presents shipped from some dusty overseas post, promises that Daddy will be home soon. It was never enough. But it was all I could offer. I was in the operations tent at Forward Operating Base Raven, just like any other day, scanning intelligence reports with my squad mates, Felix and Bernie. The Syrian desert sun was setting, painting everything in shades of blood and sand. Felix, he's sharp, noticed the tension in my jaw. "You good, Ice?" he asked. "Always," I said, but my mind was a million miles away. Tommy's last video call, a few days before, it had been off. He seemed nervous, his eyes darting away from the screen. I told myself it was just kid stuff, you know? But something, a tiny little alarm bell, kept ringing in the back of my head. Then my satellite phone rang. My personal line, not the official one. My gut instantly tightened. "Personal calls out here? They only mean one thing, emergency." I answered. "Dad." Tommy's voice. A whisper. Tight with pure, unadulterated fear. My entire body just locked up. "Tommy, what's wrong, buddy?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Dad, Mom's new man hurt me again." The words came in a rush, almost too fast to hear. He said your soldier's 1,000 miles away and can't do a thing. Just like that, the world went silent around me. A roaring like an avalanche filled my head. My hand clenched around the phone so hard my knuckles went bone white. "Tommy, where?" But then a rustle. A man's voice. Thick with arrogance, dripping with malice. You heard the boy. My brothers run this town. You come home, soldier boy. You're gonna find out what happens to heroes who stick their nose where it don't belong. Then, click. The line went dead. Just dead. I don't even remember crossing the compound. One moment, I was staring at that dead phone, my world caving in. The next, I was standing in front of Captain Reginald Valencia's desk, in his tent. My voice, somehow, was steady, despite the absolute fury burning through my veins. Sir, I need emergency leave. My son is in immediate danger. Valencia looked up from his paperwork. He's a 20-year veteran, came up through the ranks, seen it all. He recognized the look in my eyes. It's that look men get right before they do something that simply cannot be undone. Explain, he said simply. I told him everything. My voice never wavered. When I finished, he just leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. You know what you're asking me to do, Sergeant? Yes, sir. And you know what you're going back to do? Yes, sir. He just stared at me for a long, silent moment. Then he picked up his phone. Give me transport command. I need a priority flight out of here. And get me Master Sergeant Vince Rios. 20 minutes later, Vince Rios walked into the tent. And right behind him? Felix Galloway, Bernie Graham, Jonathan Garza, and Bill Blackwell. My fire team. The men I'd served with for 3 straight years. These were the guys who'd carried me out when I took a hit in Mosul. The guys who held the line in Raqqa when everything, absolutely everything, went to hell. Valencia looked at them. Gentlemen, he said, Sergeant Kane has a family emergency. I'm granting him emergency leave, effective immediately. He paused, his eyes moving across each of their faces. I'm also granting all of you leave. You're going with him. Felix, always the one to speak up, started, Sir, we didn't request. Valencia cut him off. I know what you didn't request, Corporal. And I know what you're going to do anyway. So let's just make it official. 2 weeks emergency leave. All of you. If anyone asks, you were visiting Sergeant Kane's family for moral support. Then his voice hardened. But understand this. You are still soldiers. You represent this unit, this army, and this nation. Whatever you do, whatever happens, I expect you to conduct yourselves accordingly. The unspoken message? Crystal clear. Don't get caught. Don't embarrass us. And for God's sake, do what needs doing. Yes, sir, they replied, a single, powerful voice. 8 hours later, I was on a cargo transport, heading for Ramstein Air Base, then back to the States. My team, my brothers, were all around me. Their weapons cleaned and stowed, but every single man had that same look, the blank, focused gaze of operators gearing up for a mission. What's the situation on the ground, Ice? Vince asked. He's 34, oldest of us, career NCO with a wife and 2 daughters back in Texas. He understood. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the intel I'd been gathering during flight prep. My ex-wife, Tammy, she's been seeing a guy named Gilberto Barajas, small-time criminal in Ridgefield, Oregon. That's where she moved after the divorce. Town of 12,000. I told them. Barajas has 2 brothers, Raphael and Jeremy. All 3 have records. Assault, drug possession, extortion. Police? Bernie asked, his voice sharp. I called Oregon State Police from the base. Reported the abuse. My jaw tightened. They said they'd send someone for a welfare check. That was 6 hours ago. No call back. Bill Blackwell, our comms specialist, pulled out his laptop. Let me see what I can dig up. For the next 2 hours, as that transport droned across the Atlantic, Bill worked his magic. And what he found? It painted an absolutely ugly picture. The Barajas brothers aren't small time, Bill finally said, his voice grim. They're part of a larger network. Their uncle, Valentine Vaughn, runs a drug distribution operation across 3 counties. These brothers? They're his enforcers. And get this, Ridgefield's police chief, Peter Sharp, has a brother-in-law who works for Vaughn. The whole damn department is compromised. How compromised? I asked, my voice low. 3 complaints filed against the Barajas brothers in the last 2 years, Bill continued. Assault, domestic violence, intimidation. All of them disappeared from the system. No follow-up. No charges. A cold, hard ice spread through my chest, numbing everything except one single, burning thought: the mission. This wasn't just about getting Tommy safe anymore. This was about ripping apart an entire network that thought it was untouchable. "All right," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Then we do this the hard way." We landed at Portland International at 0600. I'd called ahead to Horace Pierce, an old Army buddy who'd left the service a couple of years back and started a security consulting firm. He met us at the airport with 2 SUVs. No questions asked. "Good to see you, Ice," Horace said, gripping my hand. "Heard you needed some support." "Always do," I replied. "What do you know about Ridgefield?" His answer was quick: small town, big problems. The Vaughn operation is the worst-kept secret in the county. They move meth and heroin up from California. Everyone knows, nobody does anything. We drove to Ridgefield in a convoy, rolling into town just after sunrise. I directed them past the small downtown, past the diner, past the hardware store, to the neighborhood where Tammy lived. Modest homes, chain-link fences, tired lawns. Tammy's house was a small blue Rambler at the end of a cul-de-sac. My throat tightened when I saw Tommy's bike lying in the front yard, one wheel slowly spinning in the morning breeze. "Eyes open," Vince murmured. Black Escalade, 3 houses down, 2 men inside. I'd already spotted them. Watchers. The Barajas brothers weren't taking chances. "Bernie, Felix, you're with me." Everyone else maintained position and surveillance. "Bill, get eyes in the sky." Bill launched his commercial drone, small enough to be invisible, but powerful enough to give us a full picture. I approached the front door, my team flanking me. Knocked 3 times, firm, but not aggressive. The door opened a crack. Tammy's face appeared. She looked older than I remembered. Dark circles under her eyes, and a fresh bruise on her cheekbone that makeup barely hid. "Scott," her voice cracked. "What are you? Where's Tommy?" I cut her off. She glanced over her shoulder, then stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind her. "You can't be here." "Gilberto." "Where is Tommy?" "He's at school." "Scott, please, you need to leave. You don't know what these people are capable of." "Then tell me." Tammy's hands shook as she wrapped her arms around herself. "I didn't know. Not at first. Gilberto, he was charming, attentive. He had money. I thought he was a contractor or something. By the time I figured out what he really did, I was already too deep." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "He said if I left him, if I went to the police, his family would hurt Tommy. Hurt me. I saw what they did to a woman who testified against Raphael. She just disappeared. Scott, they found her car in a ravine 2 months later, but they never found her." My stomach twisted. "How long has he been hurting Tommy?" 3 months. It started with yelling, then pushing. Last week She couldn't finish. I felt Felix's hand on my shoulder, steadying me. When I spoke, my voice was calm, almost gentle. "Tammy, I need you to trust me. Can you get Tommy out of school early? Say it's a family emergency. Gilberto will know. He has people watching. Let them watch." "What time does Tommy get out of school normally?" 3 o'clock. "Where's Gilberto now?" "He left this morning. Said he had business." She looked at me, desperate hope in her eyes. "Can you really get us out of this?" A cold certainty settled over me. "I'm going to do better than that," I said. "I'm going to make sure they never hurt anyone again." After Tammy went back inside, my team and I returned to the SUVs. Bill already had the drone footage pulled up on his laptop. "Got something interesting," he said. "There's a warehouse on the industrial side of town. Lot of traffic, coming and going. Our friends in the Escalade? They've been in radio contact with someone there." "Vaughn's operation?" Felix asked. "Most likely. But there's more," Bill replied. I pulled property records. The warehouse is owned by a shell company, but I traced it back. He paused for dramatic effect. "Guess who's listed as a silent partner?" "Don't tell me," Vince muttered, already knowing. "Police Chief Peter Sharp." "Not directly," Bill confirmed. "It's buried under his wife's maiden name and 3 other LLCs. But it's there." I nodded slowly. "So, We're dealing with a full-blown criminal enterprise with police protection. They think they're bulletproof. What's the play? Bernie asked. I looked at my team. These men. The ones who'd followed me into hell more times than I could count. First, we go to Tommy's school. Secure him. Then, we start taking apart their operation, piece by piece. But we do it smart. We document everything, build a case that can't be ignored. And when they come for us, and they will, we make sure we're ready. And if they don't give us a choice? Vince asked quietly. My eyes felt cold. Cold as a Montana winter. Then I said, we handle it the way we handled Mosul. Ridgefield Elementary. Just a sprawling brick building. I walked into the main office at 2 p.m. alone, in civilian clothes, jeans, flannel, a baseball cap. Just another parent. Can I help you? The secretary, a pleasant woman in her 50s, asked. I'm Scott Kane, Tommy Kane's father. I'm here to pick him up early. Family emergency. Her fingers flew across her keyboard. I'll need an ID. And I need to verify you're on the approved pickup list. I handed over my driver's license. She studied it, then her screen, and frowned. I'm sorry, Mr. Kane, but you're not on the list. Only his mother. She paused uncomfortably. And Mr. Barajas are authorized. I'm his father. I have joint custody. Understand, sir, but we need to follow protocol. If you can have Tommy's mother call us and add you to the list. I leaned forward slightly, my voice low, but urgent. Ma'am, my son called me yesterday and told me he's being hurt. I flew halfway around the world to protect him. Now, you can call the police if you want. I'd actually appreciate that. But I'm not leaving without my son. Her face went pale. See, she'd seen the bruises on Tommy. She'd reported them herself to Child Protective Services 2 weeks ago. Nothing had happened. She'd been told the case was under review. Let me get the principal, she said quietly. Principal Joan Andrews, a no-nonsense woman, had been in education for 40 years. She listened to my story, saw the military ID that confirmed who I was, and she made a decision. I'll release Tommy to you, she said. But I'm also calling CPS and the Oregon State Police. This situation needs to be investigated properly. I'd expect nothing less, I said. Thank you. 20 minutes later, Tommy walked out of his classroom. He saw me, standing there in the hallway, and he just broke into a run. I caught him, held him tight, felt his small body shaking. You came, he whispered, his voice muffled against my chest. Always, buddy. Always. As we walked to the SUV where Felix waited, I examined my son. A fading bruise on his arm. Another on his ribs, visible when his shirt rode up. Rage burned in my chest. A silent, searing inferno. But I kept my voice calm. You're safe now, I told him. Nobody's going to hurt you again. We drove to a motel on the outskirts of town, a place Bill had scouted. My team had snagged 4 adjoining rooms, turning them into a makeshift operations center. Horace, he'd brought extra supplies, surveillance gear, secure comms, enough to sustain us for weeks. Tommy sat on one of the beds, munching pizza, while Vince, a gentle giant, showed him pictures of his own daughters. I stepped outside with Bill and Bernie. Police chief just got a call from the school, Bill said, monitoring the scanner. He's dispatching 2 officers to Tammy's house. Good, I said. Let them do their job. We stay clean. But I want eyes on that warehouse tonight. Full surveillance. Who comes? Who goes? What are they moving? That night, Felix and I conducted the reconnaissance ourselves. The warehouse sat at the end of a dead-end road, surrounded by a chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. Security cameras were there, but they were cheap, commercial models, easily avoided. We moved through the darkness like shadows, using skills drilled into us through years of night ops. From a high position, 50 meters out, we watched through thermal optics. I count 6 individuals inside, Felix murmured. Heavy activity near the loading dock. Looks like they're packaging something. Drugs, I confirmed. They're prepping a shipment. As we watched, 3 vehicles pulled up, a Mercedes SUV, a Lexus sedan, and a beat-up pickup. Men emerged, including 2 I recognized from Bill's research, Jeremy and Rafael Barajas. And then, Gilberto Barajas stepped out of the Mercedes. I'd studied his photo, but seeing him in person, everything just crystallized. He was tall, heavily built, slicked back hair, expensive clothes. He moved with that swagger of a man who'd never been held accountable for anything. This was the man who'd hurt my son. Easy, Felix whispered, sensing my tension. We observed for 2 more hours, documenting everything with high-res photos and video. This wasn't some amateur operation. Multiple distribution points, careful packaging, professional-grade security. As we prepped to extract, my phone buzzed. A text from Bill. Incoming. 2 vehicles heading your direction. Move now. We melted into the darkness, reaching our vehicle just as headlights swept across the road behind us. Someone had spotted us. Or suspected surveillance. They're getting nervous, Felix said as we drove away. That's good. Nervous people make mistakes. I nodded. My mind was already on the next phase. Intelligence gathered. Now it was time to apply pressure. The next morning, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to the FBI field office in Portland. I identified myself, gave my military credentials, and laid out the whole ugly truth, a large-scale drug operation, riddled with law enforcement corruption. The agent who took my call was professional, but skeptical, until I mentioned the photographic evidence and surveillance footage we'd collected. I can have an agent meet you this afternoon, he said. Make it 2 agents, I replied. And bring someone from the DEA. My second call was to a lawyer Horace recommended, Lauren Navarro. A former prosecutor who'd butted heads with corrupt officials one too many times. She agreed to represent me in the custody battle and review our evidence of the criminal enterprise. The third call? To a journalist, Mandy Bruce. An investigative reporter for the Portland Tribune who'd written extensively about rural drug operations and police corruption. Mr. Kane, she said when we met for coffee, I've been trying to crack the Vaughn organization for 2 years. I have it, I said, sliding a flash drive across the table. Full surveillance from last night. Faces, vehicles, license plates. Enough to start connecting the dots. Mandy studied me. Why are you doing this? You could just take your son and leave. Because Tommy isn't the only kid in this town, I told her. And these people? They'll keep hurting others until someone stops them. By afternoon, the pressure was really mounting. The FBI agents, a veteran named Francis Mesa and a sharp young agent named Ariel Peak, reviewed our evidence with increasing interest. The DA agent, Kristen Vang, a hard-eyed woman, made 3 phone calls during that meeting, each one more urgent than the last. This is solid, Francis finally said. But I need to be straight with you. Building a case against a protected organization takes time. We're talking months of investigation, wiretaps, surveillance. If they know we're looking at them, they'll destroy evidence and disappear. So, don't let them know, I said. I can keep the pressure on. Make them think it's just me. Just a father protecting his son. By the time they realize they're under federal investigation, it'll be too late. Kristen Vang leaned forward. You're talking about making yourself bait. I'm talking about doing what needs to be done, I retorted. What I didn't tell them was I'd already started. That morning, Bill had done something absolutely brilliant. He'd accessed the Barajas brothers' phones not to wiretap, that would be illegal, but to send them each a single photograph. It showed Gilberto Barajas at the warehouse, clearly visible, time-stamped, geotagged. Below it, a simple message, smile. You're being watched. The message came from an untraceable number, routed through 7 different servers across 4 countries. But its effect? Immediate. By noon, my team observed Gilberto making frantic calls. By early afternoon, all 3 Barajas brothers convened at Murphy's Tavern, their known hangout. Bill's drone captured the meeting with Police Chief Peter Sharp right there in the parking lot. They're panicking, Bernie observed, watching the footage. Look at their body language. Good, I said. Panic makes people dangerous. But it also makes them sloppy. That evening, I took Tommy to dinner at a family restaurant in downtown Ridgefield. It was a calculated move. Public. Visible. Normal. I wanted the Barajas brothers to see that I wasn't hiding. We were halfway through our meal when Jeremy Barajas walked in with 2 other men. He saw me immediately, his face darkening. For a long moment, our eyes locked. Then Jeremy smiled. A cold, predatory expression. He walked over. "Scott Kane," he said, his voice dripping with false friendliness. "The famous war hero. My brother told me you were in town." I stood slowly, deliberately positioning myself between Jeremy and Tommy. "And you," I said, my voice low, "must be one of the cowards who threatens children." Jeremy's smile didn't waver, but something dangerous, a spark of pure venom, flickered in his eyes. "Careful, soldier boy. You might be tough overseas, but you're in our world now." "Your world," I replied quietly, "is about to get a lot smaller." The two men with Jeremy shifted, hands moving toward their waistbands. I didn't move. Didn't blink. I'd faced down armed insurgents in Fallujah. These thugs? They didn't scare me. Is there a problem here? The restaurant owner, an older man named Stevie Shields, had emerged from the kitchen. He held a baseball bat in one hand and a phone in the other. "Because I've already called the police and I'm recording everything." Jeremy glanced at the phone, then back at me. His smile finally dropped. "No problem. Just saying hello to an old friend." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a menace. "My uncle wants to meet you. Valentine Vaughn. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Murphy's Tavern. Come alone." "I'll be there," I said. After Jeremy left, Stevie apologized profusely. I thanked him, paid for the meal, and took Tommy back to the motel. "Dad," Tommy asked as we drove, "are you going to be okay?" I looked at my son in the rearview mirror. "I promise you, buddy. This is all going to be over soon." I truly meant it. For him. That night, my team gathered for a tactical briefing. "They're inviting you into a trap," Vince stated, deadpan. "Murphy's is their territory. They'll have every advantage." "I know," I said. "Which is exactly why we're going to flip the script." "Bill, can you get eyes and ears inside Murphy's?" "Already working on it," he replied. "The place has Wi-Fi, which means I can access their security cameras. I can also plant some wireless mics. During the lunch rush, no one will even notice." "Good. Felix, Bernie, I want you outside with Overwatch positions. Jonathan, you're my backup inside, playing the drunk regular. Vince, you coordinate with our FBI friends. If this goes sideways, I want federal agents on standby, ready to move." "And if Vaughn wants to talk business?" Horace asked. I smiled. But there was no warmth in it. "Then we'll talk. And I'll make damn sure every single word is recorded, admissible in court." Murphy's Tavern. The place reeked of stale beer and decades of cigarette smoke. I walked in at exactly 8 p.m., wearing jeans, a black t-shirt, and a leather jacket. I knew they were scanning me for weapons. Valentine Vaughn wouldn't risk a meeting without security. So, I'd left my sidearm in the SUV. I didn't need it. This wasn't that kind of meeting. Valentine Vaughn sat in a booth at the back, surrounded by 4 hulking men. Mid-50s, lean, sharp features, silver hair, and eyes that were cold. So cold. He wore an expensive suit that looked ridiculously out of place in this dive. "Sergeant Kane," Vaughn said, gesturing to the seat across from him. "Thank you for coming." I slid into the booth. Jonathan Garza was 3 tables away, hunched over a beer, the perfect picture of a lonely drunk. I could feel, rather than see, Felix and Bernie in their Overwatch positions outside. "Rifles ready. Let's skip the pleasantries," I said. "You wanted to meet. Here I am." Vaughn smiled. "I appreciate that. I'll be direct too. You're causing problems for my organization. The school incident, the surveillance, the federal agents asking questions. This needs to stop." "Your nephew hurt my son," I countered. "That needs to stop. Gilberto has a temper. He'll be dealt with." His smile faded. "Not good enough. You don't seem to understand your situation, Sergeant. I run 3 counties. I have police, judges, lawyers on my payroll. You're one man with a grudge. How do you think this ends?" I leaned forward, my voice deadly quiet. "It ends with you in a federal prison. See, while you've been building your little empire, I've been building a case. The FBI has my evidence. The DEA is watching your warehouse. And in about..." I checked my watch, a dramatic pause. 10 minutes, a story is going to drop in the Portland Tribune, detailing your entire operation. With photos. Vaughn's face went still. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your phone. He pulled out his phone. His fingers moved rapidly. His face went utterly pale. Mandy Bruce's story had just gone live online, complete with photos, a detailed breakdown of the entire Vaughn organization. You made a mistake, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. You thought you were untouchable. You thought hurting a kid wouldn't matter because his father was too far away. But I'm not far away anymore. And I'm not stopping until every one of you is behind bars. Vaughn's men tensed, hands moving toward weapons. I didn't move. You pull those guns, I said, my voice cutting through the tension, and everyone gets caught on camera. Bill, our tech genius, showed them. On every single screen in the bar, the TV above the counter, the old arcade machine in the corner, even the jukebox display, the same image appeared. A live feed from the security cameras showing our booth. Showing Vaughn's men, hands hovering over their weapons. Say cheese, I said. You're live on the internet. Bill had hacked every device in the bar, streaming to multiple platforms. Thousands of people were watching. Vaughn's jaw clenched. Turn it off. Not until we're done talking. Here's how this works. You and your organization are finished. The feds are coming. You can cooperate, cut a deal, maybe see daylight before you're 70. Or you can fight. In which case, I'll make sure they add every charge they can think of. Your choice. Then I locked eyes with Gilberto, who was glaring from across the table. And Gilberto? You are done hurting people. If you come near my son again, if you come near Tammy, if you even think about retaliating, I will end you. And I don't mean legally. Do you understand? Vaughn stared at me for a long moment. You're threatening to kill him. I'm promising to protect my family, however necessary. For the first time, something like respect flickered in Vaughn's cold eyes. You know, Sergeant, in another life, you'd have made a good soldier for my organization. In another life, I replied, you'd have made an honest living. I stood to leave, then paused. Oh, and Vaughn? Tell Peter Sharp his career is over. The FBI knows about his partnership. He'll be arrested tomorrow morning. I walked out of Murphy's Tavern, knowing every eye in the place was on me. I just painted a massive target on my back. But I'd also made my position crystal clear. The Vaughn organization could surrender, or they could fight. Either way, they were going down. The only question was, what would they choose? The answer came at 0200 hours. 2 in the morning. I was in my motel room, Tommy asleep in the other bed, when Bill's voice crackled through my radio. Multiple vehicles approaching your position. At least 8 men, all armed. I was moving before Bill even finished speaking. I scooped Tommy up, the boy waking with a start, and carried him to the adjoining room where Vince was on watch. Take him, I ordered. Get him to Horace's safe house. No, Dad. Tommy's voice was small, frightened. It's okay, buddy. Uncle Vince is going to keep you safe. I'll see you soon. Vince didn't argue. He wrapped Tommy in a blanket and disappeared through the back door, moving fast toward a vehicle we'd positioned for exactly this scenario. I turned to my remaining team, Felix, Bernie, Jonathan. They're coming hard. We hold them here. But we do it clean. No kill shots, unless absolutely necessary. These men need to stand trial. You sure about that? Bernie asked, a hint of doubt in his voice. Because they're not coming to talk. I'm sure, I affirmed. We're soldiers, not executioners. The attack came 3 minutes later. 2 vehicles screeched into the parking lot, disgorging armed men. They weren't subtle. They were here to send a message. But I'd spent the last 2 days preparing this location. Bill had rigged cameras, motion sensors, remote access to the motel's electrical and security systems. We knew they were coming before they even exited their vehicles. Lights out, Bill said from his overwatch position in a 3rd-floor room. Every single light in the parking lot and surrounding motel rooms went dark. Absolute blackness. The attackers hesitated, suddenly blind. My team and I, equipped with night vision goggles, moved like ghosts. We'd done this 1,000 times. Hostile territory, urban warfare, close quarters, neutralizing armed threats. I dropped the first attacker with brutal efficiency, sweeping his legs, driving an elbow into his temple. He went down hard, unconscious before he even hit the ground. Felix took out 2 more, moving with the fluid grace of a martial artist. Gunfire erupted, wild and panicked. The attackers were shooting blind, rounds punching into motel walls and vehicles. I moved through the chaos, disarming another attacker, using his own momentum to slam him into a parked car. FBI, drop your weapons. The voice came from the street. Francis Mesa and 6 other federal agents poured into the parking lot, weapons drawn, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The remaining attackers, realizing they were surrounded and outgunned, threw down their weapons and dropped to their knees. It was over in 90 seconds. As the agents secured the attackers, Francis approached me. You knew they were coming. I suspected they might, I said. That's why I called you 6 hours ago. You used yourself as bait. I used myself as evidence. I corrected her. Every one of these men is guilty of attempted murder, assault with deadly weapons, conspiracy. You can trace them back to Vaughn and Gilberto Barajas himself. I saw him in the second vehicle. Frances shook her head, a slight smile playing on her lips. You're either very brave or very crazy. I'm a father, I said simply. Just a father. The next morning, the arrests began. The FBI, working with Oregon State Police and the DEA, executed search warrants across 3 counties. Valentine Vaughn was taken into custody at his mansion. Police Chief Peter Sharp? Arrested at his home. Rafael and Jeremy Barajas were picked up at the warehouse. And Gilberto Barajas, facing charges that would put him away for 20 years, he did something unexpected. He tried to run. Gilberto made it 60 miles before his luck ran out. He fled in his Mercedes, heading for the California border, but I had anticipated that possibility. Working with the FBI, we put out an alert to every law enforcement agency in the region. When Gilberto's vehicle was spotted on Highway 101, a tactical team was ready. The chase ended on a rural stretch of road. Gilberto tried to make a stand, reaching for a gun, but federal agents weren't playing games. They swarmed his vehicle, dragging him out, slamming him to the pavement. I watched it happen from the command vehicle, Francis Mesa beside me. That's all of them, she said. The entire organization, from top to bottom. But I knew there was one more piece to handle. That afternoon, I drove back to Ridgefield with Vince and Felix. We went to Tammy's house. She was packing, preparing to move. Scott, she said when she saw me. She looked like a different person. The fear was gone from her eyes, replaced by a cautious hope. I heard about the arrests. Is it really over? It's over, I told her. Gilberto's in federal custody. He'll face charges for what he did to Tommy, plus attempted murder, assault on federal agents, a dozen other counts. He's not getting out. Tammy collapsed into a chair, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I should have protected him better. I should have. You did what you could in an impossible situation, I said gently. That's over now. You and Tommy are safe. What happens now with custody? She asked. I mean, I'd thought about this a lot. I'm going back to active duty. My deployment ends in 3 months. Then I'm putting in for a stateside assignment. I want to be part of Tommy's life again. Really be part of it. But that means working together, being co-parents, not enemies. I'd like that, Tammy said softly. We spent the next hour working out arrangements. Tammy would move to Vancouver, Washington, closer to my eventual duty station. Tommy would have consistent time with both parents. We'd go to therapy, all 3 of us, to work through the trauma. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't some fairy tale reconciliation. But it was real. And it was right. That evening, I took Tommy to a park overlooking the Columbia River. He'd been quiet since his rescue, processing everything the way kids do, through play, through routine, through small questions that reveal deeper fears. Dad, Tommy asked, as we sat on a bench, watching the sun set over the water, are the bad men really gone? They're gone, buddy, I told him. They're in jail, and they're going to stay there for a very, very long time. And it's because of you. I considered my answer carefully. Because a lot of good people work together. The FBI, the police officers who weren't corrupt, the journalists who told the truth, my team who came to help. Nobody does these things alone. But you started it, he said. I did what any father would do, I told him, wrapping my arm around him. I protected my son. He leaned against me, small and warm. I knew you'd come. Even when Gilberto said you couldn't, I knew. I felt something unlock in my chest. A knot that had been there for months, years even. I will always come for you, Tommy. No matter where I am, no matter what happens, that's a promise. 3 weeks later, I stood in federal court in Portland, watching Valentine Vaughn, Peter Sharp, and the Barajas brothers being arraigned. The charges were extensive: drug trafficking, racketeering, corruption, assault, attempted murder. The judge denied bail for all of them. Gilberto Barajas, without additional charge of child abuse, would go to trial in 3 months. But the evidence against him? Overwhelming. Testimony from Tommy, from Tammy, from his teachers who'd seen the bruises. Combined with his other charges, he was looking at life without parole. After the arraignment, I met with Francis Mesa and Kristen Vang outside the courthouse. We couldn't have done this without you, Francis said. Your evidence, your testimony, it was all crucial. I just want to make sure it sticks, I said. That they don't find some technicality to walk. They won't, Kristen assured me, a rare smile on her face. We got them cold. And your case? It's opened up 3 other investigations into rural drug operations. You've done more than save your son. You've helped clean up an entire region. That afternoon, I went back to the motel to pack. My team had already left, returning to base one by one. They'd faced questions about their leave, about what they'd been doing, but Captain Valencia had been true to his word. The official record showed they were supporting a fellow soldier's family emergency. Nothing more. Horace Pierce helped me load the last of my gear. You did good, Ice, he said. Real good. Couldn't have done it without you, any of you, I replied. That's what brothers do. You need anything anytime you call. My flight back to Syria left that evening. As I sat in the departure lounge, I video called Tommy. He was with Tammy, already settling into their new apartment in Vancouver. When will you be back, Dad? He asked. 3 months, I told him. Then I'm home for good. We'll get you signed up for baseball. Maybe go camping. Would you like that? Yeah. Tommy's face lit up, the fear finally, truly gone from his eyes. After I hung up, I leaned back in my chair, feeling the exhaustion finally catch up with me. I'd barely slept in 3 weeks, running on adrenaline and pure, unadulterated purpose. But it had been worth it. My son was safe. The men who hurt him were in prison. Justice, messy and imperfect as it was, had been served. My phone buzzed. A text from Vince. Safe travels, Ice. See you on the other side. Another from Felix. Drinks when you get back. You're buying. And one from Bill. Already counting down the days until we're stateside again. Tommy's lucky to have you as a father. I smiled, pocketed my phone, and boarded my flight. 3 months later, I kept my promise. I separated from the Rangers and took a training position at Fort Lewis. I bought a house 15 minutes from Tammy's apartment. Tommy's room has a view of Mount Rainier. We went camping in the Cascades. Tommy joined Little League. On weekends, I coached his team. Slowly, carefully, we built a new normal. Sometimes, Tommy still had nightmares. And sometimes, I did too. Different nightmares, from different wars. But we faced them together. One evening, as I tucked Tommy into bed, he looked up at me with serious eyes. Dad, will you teach me to be brave like you? You already are brave, buddy, I said, brushing his hair from his forehead. You called me when you were scared. You told the truth when it mattered. That's the bravest thing anyone can do. But you came and saved me. And someday, when someone needs help, you'll be the one who comes, I told him. That's what we do. We protect the people who can't protect themselves. Tommy thought about this, then nodded. Okay, I can do that. I kissed his forehead. I know you can, buddy. I know you can. As I left Tommy's room, I paused in the doorway, looking back at my sleeping son. I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The desperate phone call, the frantic flight home, the battle against corruption and violence. I thought about the team that had stood with me, the agents who believed me, the people who'd risked their own safety to do what was right. Justice wasn't always clean. It wasn't always easy. But it was always, always worth fighting for. I turned off the light and closed the door, carrying that truth with me into the night. So, what about you? Have you ever had to fight for someone you loved against impossible odds? Or stood up when everyone else looked away? Share your story, or just tell me what you think, down in the comments below. I really want to hear from you.